The narrative begins with a lively scene in the city of Thneedville. The city has been dubbed the city of plastic because it's so disconnected from nature. People are so oblivious of natural beauty that they may live happily without it. There are no trees in the city. The city is densely packed with densely packed dwellings and artificial flora. Ted is the youngster who leads the same life as the other residents of the fictitious city. He has a crush on Audrey, a nearby girl with brilliant red hair. He frequently throws the ball into her house on purpose in order to meet her. Now, impressing a crush is never easy, and it can be particularly difficult if she's your neighbor. You may see her around often, but don't let that intimidate you. Instead, use it as an opportunity. Here are some tips on how I would have impressed my neighbor girl crush. I would start by saying hi and engaging in conversation. Whenever I see her, I would say hello and ask her about her day. I'll make sure to pay attention to any details she shares, so that I can reference them in future conversations. Showing her that you're genuinely interested in her life and that you care about what she has to say is one of the best ways to impress your girl. I would also find things we have in common. Do we both like the same sports team? Are we both avid readers? I would look for any common interests we may have and use them as conversation starters. Talking about shared interests is a great way to get to know each other and show her that you care. Give her compliments. Compliment her in her style, her smile, or anything else that stands out to you. Be sure to not overdo it though. Too many compliments can make you seem insincere, so be mindful of how often you compliment her. Show her your care. If my crush ever mentions something that's important to her, I'll make sure to remember it. I will ask her about it in the future and show her that you care. Maybe she mentioned that she's training for a big race or that she's working on a project. Showing her that you're interested in her life and that you support her goals will make her find interest in me too. Most importantly, I would be myself. Don't try to be someone you're not when impressing a girl. Instead, focus on being the best version of yourself. Show her your sense of humor and your intelligence. Let your personality shine and she'll be sure to take notice. Impressing your neighbor girl crush doesn't have to be difficult. Start by saying hello and engaging in conversation. Find common interests to talk about, give her compliments, show her you care about her, and be yourself. With some effort and a little luck, you'll be sure to leave a lasting impression. In the film, he crashes lands an airplane toy in her house. Audrey asks him into her home to demonstrate something. Ted was taken aback when he noticed Audrey's painting of trees on the wall. Audrey tells Ted about the beauty of trees, and Ted realizes how much Audrey adores trees. She tells Ted that she would prefer to see a tree in her backyard than anything else in the world. She even tells Ted she would marry someone who brings her a genuine tree. If I were in the position and finding a real tree is all I had to do to marry the crush of my life, I would definitely do so. In today's world, winning the heart of a girl requires more than just a tree, so Audrey is definitely a gem. She cares for the environment, loves trees and daydreams just like me. Ted sees a chance to win Audrey's heart by bringing him a tree for her backyard and begins looking for ways to accomplish it. Ted had no idea where to go for a genuine tree because neither Thneedville nor its surrounding countryside had a single tree or other hint of nature. He's also never seen a real tree on TV or anywhere else. He did ask his mother how to find a genuine tree, but she was not pleased with the query. As she began giving him the unending list of disadvantages of real trees and the positives of fake trees, she demonstrated the advantages of having artificial color-changing trees to match the mood. Ted was perplexed. Ted could finally see a ray of hope to impress his lifelong infatuation when his Grammy offered him the details of a person named Once-ler who can assist him get what he wants. Grammy informs Ted that Once-ler may be found far outside of town. She also informs Ted that if he gives him $15, a nail and a grandpa snail, Once-ler would tell him everything. Ted gets on his bike after obtaining everything he needs to leave town in search of the mystery man his Grammy told him about. Night outings can be a great way to have fun and explore the world, but they can also be a major source of stress if you're trying to hide them from your parents. Unfortunately, even the most clever of teenagers can get caught out if they're not careful. To ensure that I don't get caught when going out late at night, here are some tips I would use to stay safe and hidden. First, establish a plan early. Before you head out, make sure you know exactly where you're going, who you're going with, and how you're getting home. If you don't plan ahead, you're more likely to make a mistake that could get you caught. Second, make sure you have an alibi. When your parents ask where you are, you need to have an answer that's believable and backed up with evidence. For example, if you tell your parents you were at the library, make sure you can show them a book you checked out or a library card in your name. Third, Be aware of your digital footprint. If you're out late at night, make sure you're not posting to social media or checking into places, as your parents may be able to track your location this way. Fourth, don't forget to be cautious when you arrive home. If you've been out late at night, make sure you don't take too much noise when you arrive home. Keep your lights off and your music low. Finally, be prepared to take responsibility. If you do get caught, be honest and take responsibility for your actions. Your parents will respect you more if you admit your mistake and demonstrate that you can learn from it. By following these tips, you can minimize the chances of getting caught when you go out late at night. If you plan ahead, establish an alibi, be aware of your digital footprint, and take responsibility if you get caught, you can enjoy late-night outings without the worry of getting into trouble with your parents. Meanwhile, Mr. O'Hare, a nasty and selfish businessman, resided within their city. O'Hare's staff attempted to persuade him to bring bottled air to Thneedville. Employees also proposed polluting the environment so that people would buy bottled air. They demonstrated several methods of marketing their new company concept. O'Hare was persuaded, and he became aware of Ted's departure from the city at the same moment. Ted exited the city and was surprised to discover the gloomy and filthy environment beyond the city walls. But he continued on his journey. Despite several challenges, Ted arrives at the home of Once-ler. There, he discovered a mystery home and eventually met Once-ler. Approaching a mysterious house in the middle of nowhere can be a bit intimidating. After all, who knows what might be lurking inside? But with a bit of wit and caution, you can safely investigate the strange residence. First, don't be afraid to take a few steps back and look around before you approach the house. It's wise to familiarize yourself with the area so you can plan a safe route of approach. Are there any signs of recent activity? Are there any suspicious vehicles parked nearby? Is the house located in a remote area? Or is there a road leading up to it? Once you've assessed the situation, you can proceed with caution. If you feel safe doing so, you can approach the house. Try to stay close to the sides of the house, as this will give you more cover. If you can, peer through a window or two to get a better look at the interior. You can also take note of any noises or smells coming from the house. If the house looks abandoned, then it's likely it's safe to approach the door. However, you should still proceed with caution. Knock on the door and listen for any signs of movement within the house. If you're feeling brave, you can even try to open the door and take a peek inside. Remember, never enter a strange and mysterious house without the proper precautions. Make sure you have a plan in place in case something goes wrong. Bring a friend with you or make sure someone knows where you're going. With a bit of wit and caution, you can investigate the mysterious house in the middle of nowhere with no harm done. When Ted knocked on the door, the answer from inside the home was not welcoming at first. But once Ted explained why he was looking for the trees, Once-ler consented to tell him the tale of how the trees had vanished. Once-ler informed Ted that the tree had perished as a result of his idea. He began the narrative by transporting them back in time to when Once-ler left his family to develop his creation, which he termed Thneed, a knitted garment with numerous purposes. He began his quest when he discovered a wonderful spot full of trees and wild creatures one day. Thneed's idea would need the chopping of trees and their use in its creation. All the animals were terrified as Once-ler hacked down the tree with an axe. At that moment, unexplained lightning struck the severed stem of the tree, and a magical monster known as Lorax with a massive mustache appeared. Lorax, as the forest protector, was displeased with Once-ler. He commanded Once-ler to go, but Once-ler protested and did not consent to leave. He paid no attention to Lorax. Lorax advised him once more to leave before sundown or he would be cursed. Once-ler told Ted to come back tomorrow to hear the rest of the story, leaving the story unfulfilled. Ted returned with a request to return the next day. Ted was completely committed to achieving Audrey's dream. He was thinking about kissing his crush Audrey as the next day approached. Ted was about to go back on his bike to see Once-ler when he was stopped by O'Hare and his men. O'Hare was well aware of Ted's motivations since he had surveillance cameras strategically placed across the city. O'Hare threatened Ted not to leave the city again in search of trees because trees may harm O'Hare's artificial air company, making it evident that he's a powerful and self-centered individual. But Ted was madly in love with Audrey and would go to any length to ensure her happiness. Ted, not to be deterred, resumed his march towards the city gate. He soon came at Once-ler's mystery home and summoned him. Once-ler recognized Ted was serious about trees and was also aware Ted was trying to impress a female. So, witnessing Ted's seriousness and determination, he resumed the tale from where he had left off. Lorax was not pleased with Once-ler as he proceeded to hack down trees at the moment. Lorax planned to seek the assistance of other animals at night to elevate Once-ler's bed. Sleeping Once-ler and his bed were tossed into the river. Unfortunately, a young bear became entangled in the bed and drifted with the waves towards the waterfall's brink. Falling off a waterfall can be a dangerous and even life-threatening experience, but with a few simple tips, you can avoid this terrifying experience. The first and most important tips is to make sure you know what you're getting into. That means researching the waterfall before you visit. Is it a gentle cascade or a raging torrent? Do you need special equipment or protective gear? Are there any dangerous currents or tricky spots? Knowing the answers to these questions will help you prepare the best way possible. Another tip to avoid falling off a waterfall is to use the right equipment. Yes, make sure you're wearing a life vest, helmet, and any other protective gear that might be necessary. If it's a surprise like Once-ler faced, make sure you have the equipment under your bed. If you make enemies, it's better to be prepared with at least a bulletproof vest and a life vest. You should also use a rope to secure yourself to the rocks or banks of the waterfall. This will ensure that you don't slip and fall into the raging waters below. Finally, make sure you're mindful of your surroundings. If you're visiting a waterfall, chances are it's in a wild and unfamiliar environment. Stick to the trails and paths that are clearly marked and avoid taking any unnecessary risks. Listen to the advice of any locals who may be present and keep an eye out for any potential hazards. Ultimately, the best way to avoid falling off a waterfall is to use common sense. If something looks too dangerous or risky, it's probably not worth the risk. Respect the power of nature and take all the necessary precautions to stay safe. With a little bit of research and preparation, you can enjoy the beauty of a waterfall without putting yourself in harm's way. When Once-ler awoke, he clutched the bear in an attempt to rescue both of them. Lorax was forced to assist Once-ler by using a large stone to pull Once-ler and the bear out of the river against his will. Once-ler was first delighted with Lorax's actions, but when he discovered that it was his intention to dump Once-ler into the river, he became enraged. Lorax felt bad and attempted to explain to Once-ler that he was only doing this to save the trees. Lorax persuaded Once-ler to vow that he would never cut down another tree again. The next day, when Once-ler woke up, he saw all the forest creatures were in his room. He showed them his invention Thneed and also its benefits and uses. Once they've carried the garment toward the city, the response of the people of the city was not encouraging for Once-ler, and they made fun of the invention and humiliated him. The fear of being laughed at by a crowd is a common one and can be a source of considerable anxiety. It can be an especially daunting experience if you find yourself in a situation where you have to speak in front of a group of people. Fortunately, there are some steps you can take to help reduce the chances of being laughed at by a crowd. First and foremost, make sure that you're properly prepared for whatever it is you're about to do. That means doing thorough research on the topic or activity you're about to participate in and having a good understanding of the material before you get in front of the crowd. It's also good to practice beforehand by giving presentations or speeches to family members or friends. Secondly, be confident. This may seem like a no-brainer, but it's essential when it comes to avoiding ridicule from a crowd. Showing that you're confident in what you're doing and that you're not afraid to take risks will make it less likely that people will laugh at you. Thirdly, avoid making jokes if you're not sure you'll get a laugh. It's understandable to want to make people laugh, but if you're unsure of your audience's humor, it's best to avoid making jokes altogether. Doing so will prevent the embarrassment of an awkward silence or worse, an outright chorus of laughter. Fourthly, don't be afraid to use humor. Humor can be an effective way to engage an audience and make them feel comfortable. Using humor in your presentation can also help break the tension if you sense that the crowd is feeling uneasy. Just be sure to keep it tasteful and appropriate for your audience. Finally, use body language to your advantage. Nonverbal communication is often just as important as verbal communication and can make a huge difference in how you're perceived by a crowd. Smiling, making eye contact, and using appropriate gestures can help create a positive atmosphere and make it less likely that people will be laughing at you. By following these steps, you can reduce the chances of being laughed at by a crowd. While it's impossible to completely eliminate the possibility of embarrassment, being properly prepared, confident, and using humor and body language to your advantage can help reduce the chances of people laughing at you. Disheartened, Once-ler threw his invention, which was accidentally worn by a beautiful girl, as a hat, and people started loving it. Once-ler was unaware of the fact that people liked this product. Once-ler went to the jungle again. Soon, hundreds of people followed him as everyone fell in love with this product. Once-ler called his family to the jungle to see success once again. Once-ler stops his story once and promises to continue the story next day. Ted returns to the Thneedville and meets Audrey at the supermarket. The meeting was disturbed by Grammy, as Audrey returned home and was quite disappointed to see their drawing on the backyard while there was run by O'Hare's company. Ted once again set to go to Once-ler's house, but this time the city gate was locked by O'Hare. But nothing could have stopped him from going outside the city. Despite many obstacles, he reached Once-ler's house to complete the story. Once-ler once again started the story from where he left off. The family had arrived at the jungle. Her mom was amazed to see his success and told him that she knew it from the start that he would do something great in the future, while in fact she did not. Happy again with the family, Once-ler once again convinced Lorax that they would not harm trees. After some time, Once-ler became proud and greedy after his family kept praising him a lot. They suggested that he chop down all the trees that they could to make the production of Thneed more efficient and effective. Once-ler agreed, chopping trees, and one after the other, they chopped many trees from the jungle. Lorax was again unhappy with Once-ler for breaking the promise. However, Once-ler was filled with greed. He did not listen to Lorax. Time passes and Once-ler's company was making a huge profit. Sadly, the number of trees in the jungle was declining rapidly, and at last, the last tree from the jungle was also cut down. This brought the trees near extinction. Lorax was disappointed with Once-ler, but soon the entire jungle was barren, and he could do nothing more. After there were no longer any trees left, the company had closed and the greedy family of Once-ler left him because he was of no use anymore to them anymore. Once-ler is now disappointed and full of regret when he saw Lorax and the other creatures being forced to move to a different place. After the creatures left, Lorax also flew towards the sky by his magical powers. Strangely, the last word Lorax had spoken was "unless." Till that day, Once-ler still questions what he meant. Once-ler was left alone and the story was finished. Ted was quite amazed by Once-ler's story. Once-ler gave the last remaining seed to Ted with instruction to plant it in the middle of the city and make the people aware of the benefits of the trees. Ted moved back to the city with the seed and asked Audrey to meet him at his house. O'Hare's camera spotted the seed in Ted's hand. When Ted reached home to plant the seed, O'Hare and his bodyguards were already at his home looking for the seed. He somehow managed to hide the seed from O'Hare corruption. Ted's mom was quite worried about the situation and asked him what's happening. Ted told her the truth. O'Hare's guards were outside Ted's house for surveillance. Audrey arrives at Ted's house. Audrey becomes mesmerized to see the seed and even wanted to kiss Ted, but her mom interrupts. They all plan about planting the seed in the middle of the city. Ted's mom goes out of the house in the car and the guards started chasing her. She tries to speed up but gets stopped. "We've all been there. You're being chased, and the only way to win is to outsmart your pursuer. Whether it's a game of tag, a game of hide and seek, or something more serious, the same basic principle applies. Use your wits to get away. First, assess the situation. What type of environment are you in? Are there any potential hiding places you can use to your advantage? Are there any potential shortcuts you can take to outrun your pursuer? Can you use objects in the environment to your benefit? Second, make use of distractions. If you can create a distraction to throw your pursuer off your trail, this could be anything from throwing an object in a different direction to make them think you're going that way, to making loud noises to attract someone else's attention. Just remember to use caution and make sure whatever distraction you choose won't put you in further danger. Third, use your surroundings. If you're being chased in a city environment, for example, you can use the buildings and alleyways to your advantage. Take a zigzag route through the streets or use the rooftops to hide from your pursuer. In a more rural environment, you can use trees and bushes to your advantage. Look for a place to hide or take a path that your pursuer may not think of. Fourth, use your resources. If you have access to a car or bike, use it to your advantage. Try to outrun your pursuer or drive to a place they won't think to look. If you don't have access to a vehicle, you can still use your own 2 feet to outrun your pursuer. Look for shortcuts they won't think of, and run as fast as you can. Finally, have a plan. Before you start running, have an idea of where you want to go and how you're going to get there. This will help you stay focused and make sure you don't get lost or put yourself in further danger. Winning when being chased may seem daunting, but with a little bit of planning, resourcefulness, and creativity, you can outsmart your pursuer and make it a safety. Good luck! When the guards saw the vehicle, it was only Ted's mom and a picture of Ted at the back to fool the guards. Ted, Audrey, and Grammy were on the bike as they made their way to plant the seed in the middle of the city. Due to the diversion caused by Ted's mom, they got a head start, but the diversion does not last long as O'Hare followed Ted on an airplane. Both of them went through a rough ride. There's a park when the seeds should be planted where there was no mud. Grammy uses a crane to dig in place as they simultaneously end up breaking O'Hare's statue. The citizens were in shock about the situation. Ted and others tried to explain to them that they want to plant a real tree, but the people were not sure of Ted's actions. Meanwhile, O'Hare also arrives at the scene. He tries to manipulate everyone by giving them false reasoning and bad consequences of having real trees. Audrey tries to explain to everyone that trees produce fresh air, which is free of cost to everyone. O'Hare again tries to prove him wrong with his fake arguments. He manipulates them by saying that Need Villa is in good condition right now and doesn't need to be changed. The citizens start to give into O'Hare's fake arguments. However, Ted uses the crane to break the city. One thing's for sure, Ted has shown immense patience for the cause of environment pollution, while everyone else sees the absurd and filthy environment and is quite shocked. Ted stands up on the crane's roof and urges people to see the outside. He asks for their support in order to stop further contamination of the environment. O'Hare again asks for people's support, but this time his employee stands against him in order to face a true reality which was being kept hidden from them. Everyone finally decides to support Ted's cause of finding the tree. One after another, people start supporting Ted for his cause. They plant the tree and Audrey finally kisses Ted. As they share an intimate moment, the tree blossoms out of the land, and soon after there are lots of trees. The environment had finally turned into the paradise it was meant to be. Later, Once-ler came out of the house and finally met his old fellow Lorax. They hugged each other with satisfying laughter. We've covered a lot of craziness in this video, but there's still so much more to have. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to this channel. That way, you'll get the latest updates and new videos in your feed. Also, don't forget to like and comment on this video if you found it useful. Your feedback is really important and I value your opinion. Finally, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to answer them. That's it for now. I hope to see you next time. Until then, take care and stay safe. Bye!